Imagine if your whole life you'd actually been asleep, and then suddenly the darkness became light. And suddenly you realize everything you thought you could see before was actually just darkness. Sure, some of it was pretty. You thought you were getting educated, informed, enlightened, dignified, justified, evolved, matured. You thought you had learned something, had become a pretty fart smeller. A pretty smart fella. But it turned out that light, just a false light. And it was just being used to singe the tips of your perception. But even that singed perception now sees things clearly. And suddenly you realize you've been lured into a sense of false comfort. So, the fuck am I babbling on about, huh? Well, I'll tell you. The greatest story no one's covering. They're not covering it because to do so, even though it's becoming more and more obvious every day, to do so would not only just, you know, be another obnoxious proof that I'm right about, things, but to do so would force people to take a really long, hard look at history. This isn't really working. I suppose I'll have to give up on the whole candle thing and turn on a light. But it's way over there. Oh well. It smelled good while it lasted. How y'all doing? So here's the deal. You don't have to look far back into history to confirm the individual facts that I've used to lead to my modern assertion that Putin has been behind Islamist terrorism for quite some time now. You can go back to the USSR and find out they were supporting all kinds of terrorism all over the world. And you can find their leaked and overt manifestos basically saying that we don't really need communism, we're just going to use Islam. So they kind of gave up on communism, and it's just been nationalism plus Islam. Well, just take a moment to think of whether or not you're afraid of this being true before you allow yourself to reject it. And consider what it really means for the level of perilousness of this time. Speaking of peril, I got trapped in a castle with 80 score young virgins between the ages of... No, I have a lit candle next to me and I need to put it out. Okay. Let's get it down there. Put it on there. Smell the waxy smoke. Ooh, it farted at me. Oh, it was more of a quiff. But, yeah. So, moving on. Here's the deal. If this is, I think I've already here's the deal once. I'm sorry about that. I'm tired. It's fucking 1:30 in the morning. It's been a long damn day. I've done a lot and accomplished very little. No, actually, I accomplished a good bit. I wrote like 3 pages of a business plan today while doing all this other shit. So, what was it? Here's the deal? Yeah, here's the deal. What the fuck was the deal? I don't know. When you realize 911119, well, those are interesting numbers to be. Such a coincidence. Why choose those numbers specifically? You go back into history, and then you think, well, wait a minute. Okay, if Putin's got the same objective as the Soviet Union, and this thing's kind of like all expanding along the same lines, is this like a thing? And the realize the reason why you have to start wondering whether or not it's a thing, okay, and I'll explain what I mean by a thing in a minute, is that to pull off exactly what they're pulling off requires a 3-generation strategy. Okay? That is, the second generation after the first generation migrates, raises their children to an unknowing level of indoctrination while coordinating the ultimate goal that's going to be achieved. And it's not always a matter of even the first generation or the second generation being complicit. It's just a matter of them being the right type of person in the right place, deployed at the right time. Um, and again, like, fucking, if you think astrological signs can affect somebody's general propensities, imagine if somebody could keep 1,000-year-old record of a breeding program of humans. Well, that's what you're up against. Could be. Could be. It's what you're up against. And the reason why I ask you to consider that you might be afraid of realizing this, of realizing all these connections, is because subconsciously you know that these connections go far back and are very far reaching. Subconsciously, you know about the Horde. You know that there's some evil army somewhere. Whether they're demons or aliens or whatever this and that crazy person calls them, you don't really want to know if there's proof. Because that's scary. And the reason why you don't want to know if there's proof that Russia is behind Islamist extremism is because that makes you take a look back through the historical conflict, knowing that this is a 3-generation thing. You start wondering, how long has this been going on? And you start looking at the historical conflicts between the Horde and the rest of the civilization. And you start learning about the Horde. And you realize it just kind of sprang up and did a bunch of things that nobody knows about anymore. It's all very confusing to realize that there's these massive genocides, massive wars, stretching across continents. And we're told that they bear next to no relevance to the way things are today. But in fact, they are the reason why this country exists. Which makes it all the more daunting that you should be unaware. Like, imagine an M. Night Shyamalan version of America, where we are all just in a happy suburb in the woods, and only bad things happen on TV. That's how most people live their lives in this country. And that terrifies me. Because I know what's outside the woods. People in Europe, even people in Moscow. Don't have a clue. It's like, how often do you actually talk to somebody from Grozny, from the North Sea, from Kazakhstan, from Uzbekistan? How much do you know about what's really going on out there? In Siberia, Manchuria, Krasnoyarsk, Kaliningrad or Kaliningrad. One's a little tiny thing, one's a big fucking thing. Or wait, it'll be a little tiny thing, a big fucking thing. Yeah, because you're that way and I'm this way. You're imaginary and I'm trapped in a little tiny box. Yeah. I think I'm getting too tired to continue with the video. I'm just going to play around with that theory in my head for a while I light another cigarette. So, anyway. Once you go back into the history of the different Soviet states that the West misperceives as being controlled by Russia, you come across a fact, a truth, an actual thing that most recently, okay, and therefore most validly, most veritably, we know that the hordes were Islamic. And allegedly this one converted to Islam because of a marriage, and this one conquered the other one, and that became Islamic, and blah, blah, blah. And okay. Before that, supposedly they weren't. We didn't know them before that. All we have is their word to take for it. In fact, we only have Islam's word to take for how long Islam was Islam. Now, I'm not going to go on a tirade against a religion, but obviously I'm a Christian, so I believe that all other religions are trickery. And as a rational person who, in full cognizance of their choices, chose to be Christian, decided to be Christian. I don't like to be repetitive. It should be known that I just forgot what I was saying because I tried to edit myself as if I was fucking typing. Oh, yeah, too tired to make the damn video. But yeah, but as a rational person who chose to become a Christian, I believe in my ability to consistently debate any person of any other line of belief, not only that Christianity is more valid, but also that they must A, make straw man arguments against it simply to validate their own points of view, and B, they have essentially founded their belief system upon selfish or infantile um, programming glitches. Psychosis. Yes, it's not Christians who suffers from psychosis, but pretty much everybody else. That's why when Christians were the dominant faith on the planet, we had the most civilized society ever in history. It's true. Sorry. But, that was before the Horde came. Then Christians started going to war with each other. Back in the 11Zs, 12Zs. I just felt like saying 11Zs. I had a star crunch for 11Zs. How about that shit? So, yeah. Everything you think you know from about 400 years ago on, and definitely from about 1,000 years ago on, it's not complete bullshit, but it's been highly editorialized, and a lot of it's complete bullshit. I mean, a lot of it's complete and utter total fucking they just made it up in the 1600s bullshit. Okay? Just because they didn't fucking know, and they were getting paid to fucking figure shit out, and they didn't want to lose their heads, So they made shit up. And there were also propagandists who were trying to divide and conquer people, and a lot of history gets written when politics are getting rampant. You know what I'm saying? It's being demonstrated right now, as a matter of fact. So I'm gonna just fall asleep and just take a little nap, and just wake me up when there's a point. No, wait, I'm supposed to make the point. Shit. Did I make a point? Yeah, I made a point. Point is, I need to go to sleep. And, I think the whole calendar is like, it's either 400 years off or there's some overlaps. Or there's some overlaps and it's 200 years off. And that's a hell of a lot to think about on very low mental energy. Very, very low energy. Yeah. Don't have enough energy for more of a Trump impression than that. Which is, good, because I don't want to have to drink bleach and fucking dip my head in boiling acid to cleanse my soul. Isn't that what people do after they do Trump impressions? Just a theory that I just came up with just now. Because I'm stupid. Yeah. And, that's not much of a bombshell, but it's still time to end the video. You get the fucking point, right? the connection between Vladimir Putin and terrorism is as important and coincidentally, no, not coincidentally, as long lived as the relationship between Donald Trump and Russian oligarchs. And a long time ago, what I simply called the false ones would do was build towers strategically. Build it, say it was for one reason, and then one day it would get used for something else. Huh. Memories like the corners of your mind.